I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing two of the outstanding minds in Trinidad and Tobago. One is an economist, one is a former lecturer and a political analyst and columnist, and just at large looking at the situation. Let me first of all welcome Mr. Gregory McGuire, economist. Good morning to you, sir. How are you? Mr. McGuire, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
There you go. There you go. Now I can hear you. It sounds. Are you on speakerphone by chance, sir?
Yes, I am. I should not be.
Yes. Is it possible you can put me on the mouthpiece? That makes it a lot clearer for all of us. The thing with speakerphones is then I get the ambience of the room, and that makes it a little difficult. Are you
Very
there?
well.
There you go. We are so much better. I would like to also introduce political analyst Dr. Winford James. A very good morning to you, sir. It's good to have you here.
Good morning, Rennie, and good morning to your listenership. Good morning, Gregory.
Good morning, Winford. Good morning, all of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm sorry I'm not in studio with you guys. Would love to share the forum with one Winford James.
Okay.
I haven't seen you in a while, my brother.
Yes, nor have I.
It is that sort of thing that I thought we would have in here this morning, but it's all right. We will take what we can get and go where we can. Gregory McGuire, let me start with you. Dr. Sandra Sukrem, Deputy Governor Monetary Operations at the Central Bank, said on Friday that TNT's gross domestic product has declined by an estimated 6.7% in the first half of the year, adding that, like most energy exporting countries, TNT's weak economic performance in 2015 and mid-2016 stemmed largely from the energy sector. Was this percentage drop, I ask you, surprising, or was it soft compared to what could have been?
No, well, I can't. It's not surprising at all. I mean, if you understand what's happening in the energy sector, then you understand that where the numbers are coming from. Both oil and gas, quite apart from the price problem, which I guess she's alluding to when she compares it with other energy-based countries. Quite apart from the price challenge, the real issue is falling production in both oil and gas. The oil production is down now declined 10% from last year, and gas production is 15% lower from a comparative figure in 2015, and that's the same monetary policy report I'm quoting those numbers from. So given the structure of this economy, once you have the performance of the energy sector, and it's not only oil, it's oil, gas, and petrochemicals, when they all are falling, it means that the entire energy sector is going to fall. And that's significant in the overall scheme of things. More particularly, though, because of government's fiscal constraints and its inability to execute a capital expenditure program, you have a serious drop as well in areas like construction. Government was funding a huge highway project to point forth and a number of other construction projects which are no longer active, and so you had a big drop in construction as well. So those are the fundamentals, and therefore once you understand what lies behind the number, then the actual GDP fall is not surprising.
I'm going to struggle this between your good self and Dr. James. Let me start with you, and then I'll pivot to Dr. James on this. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries said it expects crude oil will rise $5 a year to $60 per barrel by 2020. Now, this is against a year ago where the prediction was that by 2020, the oil price would rise to $80. OPEC says growth in China, or slower growth in China, and higher household debt is making it difficult for oil prices to reach the initial projection. Its impact on Trinidad and Tobago, what do you foresee, sir?
Well, I've said time and again that as a nation, we've got to get accustomed now to living with a lower oil price. The halcyon days of $100 oil and $120 oil are over. We simply have to get accustomed to adjusting our standard of living, adjusting our rate of consumption, adjusting our import propensity to income that we're now going to have from oil.
I think I'm having a little problem on that, but that's appropriate while we correct that problem. Dr. James, this whole question, some economists, not many, but some economists have said that the finance minister is not being totally honest about the economic situation Trinidad and Tobago finds itself. Looking at this revised projection coming out of OPEC, are you in concurrence with them, or do you think they are doing the best they can via explanation, but now it's up to the population to come to terms with this new reality?
Well, the situation is dynamic. The finance minister is not on record as having lied to the nation. But what he needs to do is that as the dynamics change over time, as projections are different from different organizations and economists, then the finance minister has to make an adjustment in the way, not in the way he communicates, but in what he tells the public. It cannot be that what he says last month holds for this month, because things are so dynamic. So the projection of $20 rise in the price of oil is not surprising because of the dynamics. We thought it might go to $80 by 2020, but now it appears that it will go to $60. And we haven't talked about Iranian oil coming on the market.
Yes.
We haven't talked about America unleashing shale oil on the market as well. All of which will impact the price of oil, quite apart from the production problem. We have a production problem, as Gregory just told us. So we are not shipping as much oil as we used to, right? And therefore we are earning less foreign exchange from a lowered production quota and so on. So yes, but I think it's the dynamics. All the finance minister has to do now is to constantly engage the public on a dynamic situation, and hopefully the public will pay attention.
That's the voice of Dr. Winford James, one of my guests inside Brunch this morning. Going to flip this over to Economist McGuire. And the governor of the central bank, Dr. Alvin Hilaire, is in concurrence, or in concert rather, with the statement made by the Massey CEO that there is no one coming in the short term on a horse to save the region. That is the comment coming out of Massey's CEO. And what Dr. Hilaire specifically said is that we have to look for this not as a temporary phenomenon, but something that will last for a long time.
Yeah, I want to concur with both of them that there's no magic solutions here, which is why the focus on the oil price and the constant focus we have on the oil price bothers. So prices will pop for about $2 today. And I would get 4 or 5 journalists calling me to ask me what is the significance of that for Trinidad and Tobago. Well, there really is no significance.
No.
The fact of the matter is that things remain bad, and $2 change in the price won't alter the price of cocoa. And therefore, the conversation really has to be, how do we live with less income? And how do we find other sources of income to move us back to where we were? Or to, But it can't be about waiting on the oil price and the gas price to increase at all. That makes no sense. It could go to $2,000 as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't change the question for us.
Unemployment is always disturbing. I'm going to throw this to you first, Dr. James. Last week, CSO unemployment numbers show that unemployment rate increased from 3.8% in the first quarter of 2016 to 4.4%. One of the disturbing areas of this is the number of females who joined the unemployment line. Unemployment females increased from 2,800 or 27.2%.
Right.
And this is up in a way that is disturbing because many of the single households in Trinidad are led by female, and we are looking at the consequences of this, and the demand from the social relief programs now becomes a serious issue at a time when money is not easily available to assist these ministries.
Right. But the people who run the country, the cabinet, has not told us how it's going to respond, how they are going to respond to exactly what you just said there, that more and more women are being unemployed. By the way, there was the increase in unemployment of men was greater, but overall the number of women who are unemployed in the workforce is greater, of course, than the number of men who are unemployed. So while there was an increase in the number of men who are unemployed, overall more women are unemployed than men. And that's interesting. Now, we have a cabinet, don't we? When these things are published, cabinet ought to have a response. What do we do about these figures? But I haven't heard the Ministry of Social Development say anything about that. I haven't heard the Minister of Finance. They're the ones who are running the country. So they must give us a sense of how are they going to respond. And of course, we can go to the Chambers of Commerce and ask how the private sector is responding to that fact. Because we know that women are one of the groups that are affected. We know that. There are other groups as well that the figures have not thrown up, have not given us clarity about. Are there other demographics in the country that are witnessing, are suffering from increased levels of unemployment? We need to know these things. But we need the cabinet to respond to these developments because they are ugly developments, because we are talking about people's financial health. We are talking about the education of kids. We are talking about the nourishment of kids, the future of the country. But I have not heard a reaction from the ministry, from the ministries, the pertinent ministries in the government about what we are talking about. So what do we do?
Economist McGuire, you are looking at, just almost a 2/3 shortfall in revenue coming into the country. The diversification that folks talk about is something that it will take a long time to be here. You're looking at the real numbers. You heard what Dr. James just said. What you expect or what you think should be the reaction with the limited purse strings for assisting this number of people who are falling on the unemployment line, particularly because of the single household and females, the number of females now being put on the breadline?
Look, just a couple of things before I answer that question. First of all, for the last several years, I have believed that those unemployment numbers are wrong. And I say that without any apology. If you look at the numbers, you will see in 2014 and 2015, you'll see unemployment actually going down when the economy was already shrinking. So, which just really creates, for an economist, that there's some disconnect there. The economy is shrinking, but unemployment is also going down. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, I query those numbers. In fact, I think the unemployment number is much higher than CSO wants to suggest. Now, having said so, the unfortunate thing about this society is that we pursue what is called pro-cyclical policies. When we have money, we spend, and when we don't have money, well, we just don't spend, and we just have to cut back. Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of reserves necessary to maintain the social safety net in the way we should. But I think certainly that's the last thing that government should look to interfere with, the social safety net. We just must put money aside for those who are less able to take care of themselves. Having said that, though, I think that now is the time, I keep saying in all my public addresses, that now is the time for some bold strokes from the government. And I have not seen any bold strokes as yet. And when I say bold, I'm talking about bold policy strokes, bold investment. You just have to do some things that are different.
Let me just be clear on that, Dr. McGuire, because you're saying that bold strokes, that's kind of ambiguous. If you had to get specific, what areas you expect to see coming out from government in policy and the desire and investment that would impress you?
The government has no money to invest. That's the first thing. And therefore they have to get, they talk about PPP and public-private sector partnerships is a meaningful way to approach the thing. But I would certainly believe, and when I talk about bold strokes, I'm talking about, they've spoken about the Sandals project in Tobago. I think they need to move post-haste with that. There's a private sector party who is going to bring a huge investment into the country that is going to help to transform, certainly, what we know in Tobago as tourism. And that could really create a lot of activity in the Tobago economy.
I'm going to move that right across to Dr. James. Hold on there for a moment. Yes, as a Tobagonian, Dr. James, he just shook his head inside of there, Doctor.
Well, listen, the government has said to us in very clear terms that it is going to proceed with that project. Everything the Prime Minister has said relative to tourism in Tobago includes putting down the latest Sandals in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
I have written about that. So the question is how far advanced is that project? Have they acquired the land, for example? Have they told Butch Stewart, I mean, in clearer terms that probably we know, just start. Let's get going. We know about the benefits of the investment, so we're not going to discuss that. What I have been focused on is not the putting down of the project as much as the degree of consultation with the people in the tourism industry. Whether, in fact, the Prime Minister and his cabinet and the Minister of Tourism in particular have spoken with the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, with the Hotel Association. Have they done that? Now, I don't get a sense that the government is proceeding in concert with an acceptance on the part of the key stakeholders in Tobago. I don't get that sense. Right? But I do know that Dr. Rowley is adamant that he's going forward. But he's got to start because this project will take a few years, right?
So you're both in concert there. You had some other broad strokes. Go ahead, Dr. McGuire.
No, I mean, one of the things that I've thought about over and over again is this whole concept I have of the Carnival Museum.
Yes.
I think you just simply must build a Carnival Museum. It's going to cost, I don't know what it's going to cost, but for me, it's going to generate foreign exchange for Trinidad and Tobago all year through, rather than this thing that we have for 2 days that we say is the greatest festival on earth. And at the end of the day, after the 2 days, we spend more foreign exchange than we actually earn if you do take into account all the imports of costumes and so on that goes on now. What do we then do to sustain earning foreign exchange from this big festival that is world famous throughout the year? And I'm saying build the Carnival Museum, have it 3 corridors, one for mass, one for pan, and one for the music, and have the whole history of the music, all the artifacts, all the artists, all the CDs, all the videos, all the miniature costumes. It's a whole economic activity that is going to swirl around that. A whole sort of economic activity,
Gregory,
employing hundreds of people.
I hope you're not staying at the museum.
No.
Yeah, you must be deepening that. The Carnival Industries need to be developed. Yes.
Of course.
And in that development, there will be products for export. You'll be building domestic capital. You know that better than I. Building domestic capital in an area that cries out for investment. It's just that the cabinet does not seem to be persuaded that the Carnival Industries are a good basis for investment. But I like the idea of the museum, but it has to go far further than that.
Look,
and I'm sure you have.
And I think that there's tremendous potential swirling around that, and it comes from my belief that to be successful in this export world, in this competitive world, you've got to be unique. You've got to be showcase and sell things that are unique and different. And I'm saying that Trinidad Carnival and its whole history and its whole legacy is a very unique product that can be sold from now and forever.
But you are saying that the government doesn't have money to invest.
Well, a project like this, a project like this, I think could attract low-cost funding, grant funding, UNESCO. There's money out there.
Yeah, but is it true the government doesn't have money to invest in an area like that? If it is persuaded of the benefits, both short-term and medium and long-term?
Well, history shows that they do find money.
Well, this is my point. So it's a matter of priorities, isn't it? It's a matter of priorities, right?
It is a matter of priorities, and that's my point, that you amid the priorities has to be 1 or 2 investments that are going to generate income, that are going to generate foreign exchange.
Right.
And you can't necessarily wait on private sector to do it all, because you know that they're not going to do anything.
Not at
the
all.
Private sector is going to spend its money where it could make the quickest dollar and where it has the highest return.
And they want government help in that process as well.
That's right. And insofar as that continues to be import base, they will continue to import.
It is currently 30 minutes after 11 o'clock. The voices you're hearing, on the one hand, is the economist Gregory McGuire. Very happy to have him here. Equally happy to have here Dr. Winford James, former senior lecturer, University of the West Indies education, and also political analyst. We are looking at the oil industry, and we're looking at Trinidad and Tobago itself. Before I get to the elephant in the room, I just want to deal with the initiative of government to get started the question of the construction industry. They have paid X amount of dollars to appease the strain, not appease rather, but to ease the strain that contractors have been under, and now they're initiating HDC program. Economist McGuire, let me start with you first. Good move to stimulate the economy?
Of course, it's a very good move to stimulate the economy. I mean, you look at the GDP numbers recently published, and you would see that the construction sector took a 23% hit in the first half of the year. On the last quarter, second quarter, 23%, first quarter, 15% down, and that's because there's little or no construction activity was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So once they get that program going, we will see a little uptick in construction, and that's going to be good for the numbers. It's also going to be very good for the employment picture, because construction employs a lot of people. So it is something that I endorse. I'm happy to see that certainly one or two private sector construction companies have agreed to go into the PPP arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And that should bring some relief, or should help the situation.
That too is another good area, Dr. James, because a number of the projects they're looking to put back on, i.e., fulfilling road repair and infrastructural expansion and so on.
Right, but you know that this thing was synchronous with payment of contractors. The contractors have been emboldened to start, have been encouraged now to get going or to take up the contracts because they've been paid. So, and that's government's claim, we can't ask them to do more when we have not paid them.
That's right.
So now that they've been paid, we expect now to see a lot of activity in the more public spaces of the land, because there's a political issue, of course. And of course in the regions that are not as visible to the general public, in the way they distribute the contract. So, I expect to see that happening. And I understand that the government wants some $250-something million which they can put to the highway construction, to the resumption of highway work. I believe that Mr. Imber told us about that. So there is a context that facilitates that focus on construction that Gregory talked us about, how important that is in stimulating the economy. So we just have to wait and see. Where are these big projects, Gregory? Where have we seen? Have they started? We saw something minor on the Beetham stretch of the highway, but I don't think that's it, yeah?
I don't know where they've started. I know NH International signed something with HDC there a week or so ago. I don't know exactly where that is.
Right.
I know the two hospitals continue, but they're old projects that continue. That is Point Fortin and Arima Hospital continues. Another private sector group is doing the car park in Port of Spain. I understand the Grandee highway should start soon.
So these are projects that are going to start. I mean, are going to resume. Some of them.
Some resume. The new ones will be the NH bit, the car park in Port of Spain, and I suspect that there are going to be several new HDC projects.
But actual full-blown activity has not started so far.
No.
Is that why we have Sinanan now as Ministry of Works? He's a bigger mover of action. Hines is a little bit muted, even though he talks a lot in terms of initiative. He probably is that. I'm just speculating here because Sinanan seems to be saying things we were not hearing from Hines in respect of construction activity. So I'm just speculating that. Sinanan apparently has the reputation of a get-goer, a mover. I don't know about the guy, but I understand that he's a businessman.
He's a businessman, and I think that makes a difference.
Right, and that probably makes a difference. Donald Trump is a businessman as well.
You
and,
got,
and that will make a difference too.
yeah, you just got to the elephant. Gregory McGuire is on one hand, and the other side is Professor Winford James. And the professor just looked into where I was going with this, the elephant in the room. And I want to ask about the collective shock that we all are experiencing, but I just want to throw in one thing in there before I actually get the response from both of you. There's someone you're very familiar with, University of the West Indies Vice Chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles, called the movement that pushed Donald Trump to victory as one that was entirely predictable. He said it was based on history. You can look. He says, as a humanist, as an idealist, it is a fearful situation, but it's the continuing whitening of America. He said we saw it through British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher when she got there, getting people out and getting easier movement into Britain. And he sees the general sentiment the same in America, where folks are looking to whiten America, and that is one of the reasons for the ascent of Mr. Trump. Do you subscribe, agree, or disagree with that, Professor James? Let me start with you.
First of all, let us respect Sir Hilary.
Yes.
He's one of our greatest historians.
Yes.
And I am not a historian, although I have read his works and I've read the works of other West Indian historians. So let me respect that. And he is talking about the whitening of America. And we see, of course, that Europe, there's a certain whitening of Europe as well,
Yes.
given their responses to the hordes of immigrants that are pouring in from Asia and the Middle East and Africa and so on.
Which he also referred to,
Right.
yes.
But you know, that whitening of an already white world has been resisted by those politicians in Europe and America, and I'm including the Democrats here, who understand the importance of globalization and the importance of an inclusion in a just world. Yes? They also recognize the economic and other kinds of contribution of the diverse people, the non-white peoples, to the countries that they, the white people, dominate. Because you know, Trump won because of the working class in both Democratic and Republican states. And that working class, the blue-collar class, demographically is far more populous than any other demographic. And they haven't had a good time given what globalization in the form of, China being the great manufacturer for the world. Yeah. They haven't had a good. They have lost. They have lost salaries. They have had their wages reduced and so on, and some, frankly, have been unemployed. Now, so there is a kind of a, can we call it a racial despair in that world based on what they were accustomed to. And even though Barack Obama could report that employment levels raised or rose under his tenure, the fact of the matter is that there have been declines in the kind of earnings that this dominant demographic has used to enjoy, right?
Quite accurate, you said that, Dr. James, because the Vice Chancellor also included that when he said that while there's the whitening issue, there is also a class of people that have not responded to global exclusion in an acceptable way. He said that what we are looking at is ethnic solidarity because the process has left them.
Yes, but I want to say, as again, I respect the professor. I respect all knowledge, by the way, especially if it's researched. But we've got to say that the Americans that voted Trump into power voted him into power because of economic reasons. I mean, they are white. The dominant class of voters is white. But what drove them is economics. You remember Williams's thesis about how slavery ended, what drove the government of England to do what it did. It wasn't humanitarianism.
No.
It was the bottom line.
It's not worth it anymore.
And Gregory knows that as well. It's the same thing here with those guys. If you go beyond the race, right, you'll say, well, they didn't do that under Barack. For 2 terms, they didn't do it under Barack, a black man or a man called black. They didn't do it there. They put Barack in, and Barack, by the way, won by huger margins than Trump has won.
I'm gonna wait until I hear Gregory coming on.
You know, they did, and so we have a situation where You have two white people now, only distinguished by the fact that one is conservative, and conservative in a personal way, not in a corporate way, because he broke ranks with the party. He fought against his party. And of course we have the Democrats who are inclusive, who are progressive, and who believe in inclusion, right? And Hillary lost the college votes, not the popular vote, by the way. And by the way, there are millions of votes out there that are not counted yet.
Right, and thus far she's 500,000 ahead
more
in the popular vote.
And she's going to be a million more at the end of the day. So what I'm just saying here is that we've got to go beyond that, go beyond the race, the color thing, the white thing, why that is important to understand. People in France, what's her name, Marine Le Pen or Le Pen. Then you have the guy in is it Hungary? Oh, I can't remember all these names, but there are these groups that are isolationist and are nationalistic in a way that says, look, it's time we break up the world order and have a situation where we take care of our own. Yeah?
All right.
So I think it's economics that pushed Trump.
Mr. McGuire, is this all economics or is this economics plus?
I don't agree with Winford at all. At all. I think that Trump understood something that was in the heart of white America. And he championed that. He read what they wanted. He read what they were saying quietly in the corner.
Can you put that in words, Gregory? What is this something?
What is this something?
Yeah.
That they you said it, that they felt threatened. White America is threatened with the emergence of blacks, Latinos,
well,
Chinese,
you seem to be agreeing with me then,
them.
Gregory. If that's the case, you seem to be agreeing with me when you declare that
but
you did not agree.
Economics.
Yes,
So-
but that's what
so
I
you
said.
think-
They want better jobs. They
So
want
you're
the
saying
jobs
they're
that are.
threatened because of economics.
Yes, and I'm thinking, let me get a little more specific. I'm going to allow you to talk. But when you remember that companies like Apple are getting their units manufactured in China and other Asian countries, right? Because, of course, the work there is cheap. To get the same unit built in America is going to cost at least 2 times what the unit costs abroad, right? So that what Trump is saying is that we are exporting American jobs. American companies are doing that. We should bring those jobs home. And obviously he's going to do something to stop that. That's economics. That's economics as so far as I'm concerned. So the thing is, Trump apparently saw this something, that there is this despair about their economic circumstances when compared to what it used to be. And he's saying, look, I can afford to be misogynistic. I could afford to be racist. I could afford to be abusive of minority groups, because the Latinos and the Black American, the African, are minority groups. They're 20% and under.
They're not going to win the election.
They're not going to win the election, but they could make a difference between the two parties once certain foundations are accepted.
Yes.
But there are people within who used to be in the Democratic camp who shifted to Trump, the man. Not Trump, the Republican, but Trump, the man. And I'm saying, well, where's this coming from? Because that kind of racism is always under the surface, but it never reared its head in the kind of way that it did under Trump's campaign.
Let me ask this. Let me ask this here, because I know Gregory is saying that he disagrees with you here. Is it that because? But I'm hearing that both things are in the pot here, both economics and racism. So I should ask the question then, Gregory, is which was the paramount reason you believe Trump was supported the way he was?
It's difficult to make that call. I think both of them were strong. I think he did put those economic arguments out, but I also think that he was sending how do you call it, opaque messages. The messages, coded messages. I thought he was sending.
Yes.
Make America great again was read. You see, he said something, but it's read in a different way.
Let's take it back to the 50s.
Yes, let's take back our country. Others are having are making headway.
Yes.
You know, so let's take it back. And so there's also this story that this was, which one of the radio journalists said that this was a whitewash.
Yes, I think that was Van Jones.
A whitewash.
Yeah, whitewash, yes.
Yes, you know.
Let me take this in the Caribbean context, because that's one of the, outside of the fact that whatever happens in America affects all of us, but I raise it specifically in the area of how the Caribbean will suffer from this. Dr. James, the Caribbean Basin Initiative, and a number of agreements Trump has articulated during the campaign. He's going to revisit and renegotiate to the benefit of America. The whole question of the deportation of people and the threat will cause a lot of people to come back to the Caribbean.
Well,
and then if it is implemented at all, a lot of people will be deported to the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago included.
The thing about the Trump victory is that when he spoke of renegotiation, he did not even mention the CBI, the Caribbean Basin
There's
Initiative.
been neglect for a number of years before that, man.
And people call it benign neglect. The point is that he didn't mention it, not in terms of renegotiation. The three things actually, the agreements that he talked about, the NATO one, the NAFTA one, and of course arrangements with China. Those are the three things.
He took the big economies.
And then he talked about deportation now, illegal immigration, which is a different kind of story. What he's saying here is that we have 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country, and they are coming through borders that are porous and open. And if a country is a country, it must have secure borders. And it is in that context he spoke of that big, beautiful wall. So he's saying, look, Mexico, America's closest neighbor, but there's also Canada, by the way. But Canada is a far more developed and a far more economically happy country. So you have the Mexicans coming in, and he lumped them all as bad people, rapists, right? People who are criminals and murderers. That's how he saw the whole of Mexico. And of course, he would include people from Colombia and other places. Now, so that's another issue. Now, that brings me to the point where I have to say we are not certain. Nobody is, not even the Republican Party, is certain about what Trump's actual policy will be. But we fear that because we are not that important to be mentioned. That is Caribbean people, because we are small island chain community. But we fear that in the backlash, we are going to be caught up. And so among the people who will be herded and therefore prepared for deportation are Caribbean people.
Yeah, well, it's a well-founded concern.
Yes.
Dr.
Now, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying see the context first. And our numbers are smaller. Now, I don't know, in respect of Trinidad and Tobago, what the number of our illegal people in the United States is. Now, who should have that information, Gregory? I imagine the government should have that information. If people leave your shores,
the US will have
and the US will have.
from the US.
Yeah, just to put it in the Hillary Clinton campaign, proffered that of the illegal numbers in the United States, 3.2% is from the Caribbean region.
No, but that what is the number, actual number?
The actual number.
And how is that number distributed among different Caribbean territories? We don't have that number. But what we can say is that we are not going to escape Donald Trump's wrath if he acts in the way that he suggested he would. And therefore, we have to anticipate that there is going to be an influx of Trinidad and Tobago deportees. The exact number or the estimated number is not clear. But if they come into the country in a situation that Gregory so aptly described, where you have unemployment, even though he doesn't believe the CSO's figures are correct.
No, I think it's worse. I think it's worse than they're saying.
Right, I think so too. But the point is, if we have the kind of unemployment that we do, if we have people, the government's earnings being less, right? If we find people being underemployed, from the Kyrie consultant report, it does appear that lots of people are being underemployed.
Of course.
How are we going to integrate these people in such a way that they do not criminalize, well, not criminalize is the word, they do not commit crimes that make our lives more miserable than they are? The murder rate is now 400, right?
Right, yes.
And of course, we have other kinds of crimes. And the police do not seem able to deal with these developments. Even local developments, they are struggling.
Yeah, that side I want to come to separate, Dr. James, because I do want to get back to Gregory on that question you raised as to what the economic impact is going to be. And when I speak of those coming in, I also keep in mind the climate for finding employment in the United States for a number of Trinidadians who were up there who send remittances back to Trinidad and Tobago, and now what that is going to mean, Gregory.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about Donald Trump and his policies is this whole question that we're going to get a flood of deportees coming back and so on, and that may be so. But I would like to say that equally well, I think that you're going to find a situation in which a flood of quite a number of our intelligent, young, bright students who typically would stay in the United States are going to be coming back home, because my sense is that work environment in the United States is going to change a lot for minorities, and it's going to get very difficult because those who are white supremacists, those who believe what some of the things that they think they're hearing from Trump, are going to be emboldened, and they are going to act accordingly. And I don't think the job environment in the United States is going to be very attractive to West Indians and Trinidadians. I think some good people will return home, and I think that hopefully some of them who are coming back home will be coming back home with some capital to make some investments, and not coming back home necessarily to look for a job. But so there's that positive side of it that I see.
But that's why we must have the concurrent increase in detection and arrest rate with crime to make the atmosphere one that folks feel they can bring back their little something and get you, because you're going to have those who are going to target them. That's a whole other question that comes into being. But Dr. James raised the point of that the commissioner, the acting commissioner, made clear in the last week that they are prepared to deal with any deportation. That to me was kind of difficult to swallow, because we're having problems dealing with what we have here right now.
Well, it was the right thing to say.
Exactly. It's the right thing to say. And they always say the right thing.
And they always say the right
thing. It's easy to say.
But substance very, very seldom accords with action. We know that. I'm sorry to say this, but the police service, perhaps the institution that is, they grant charge the most, I believe. The institution that grant charges the most, in my judgment, is the police service. But we can't criticize the police service too much, because we need them to defend us. We need them to be a buffer against the criminal elements. We need them to sustain law and order. So let's be clear about that. But much is wrong in what happens in the force. But I just want to respond to something that Gregory said earlier, that the white supremacists will come out, will be emboldened to take action in support of Trump and so on. But Gregory, what is happening so far is that the non-white supremacists are the ones who are taking to the streets. It's not only Latinos and Afro-Americans that are protesting against Donald Trump in this unprecedented way. It's whites as well. And we haven't seen the supremacists come out in support of Trump. What we have seen is the other side. They're saying that is not the America we want. So there is a war that is spilling over into the street.
I think, but probably because a lot of the supremacists are right now celebrating. There have been occasions where they have come out and they have asserting themselves. They feel that we're in charge now. We don't have to hit the streets right now.
Exactly.
We got our champion now to deal with that.
But it's hopeful. It's hopeful that these non-white supremacists are doing that, exactly that. Who expected that? You expected that?
No.
This is the point. So you have lots of people, and the protests are not declining, and they're not decreasing.
No, it's increasing.
They're increasing.
Yeah, that is what is surprising
Exactly.
to me. I mean,
So we don't know where
going
that
on.
will go. But Gregory said something that I want to highlight because I had not thought of it until he mentioned it, and that is to say, the deportees will be coming back will not all be people who need economic and financial help.
That's right.
Some of them are coming back with funds,
Bringing stuff.
and they could probably contribute to the development, the economic development of the country. So that suggests, though, that we need to have a profile of those people. I mean, we need to know how they are constituted. You know, we don't have that information. How many of them will need jobs? How many of them already have jobs or have income that they have saved that they can redeploy in this space? But of course, there are, Rennie was suggesting that there are people who are in receipt of these remittances who will no longer be, and therefore what's going to happen to those people who depended on the remittances? As happens in, of course, a lot of Latin America, Mexico, for example. They go and they send back money, and the people only have that to depend on, or mostly that. Now, that's going to create its own problems if that source dries up.
Gregory, let me throw this on you because the point that Dr. James just made, I think we in concert here, that we've got people coming back here. But even before this crisis with Trump, and I believe it is a crisis, even before this crisis with Trump, we had a lot of nationals who were disposed to coming back and making a contribution, but did not find a climate welcoming and accommodating for them to do it. What do you expect as an economist? What would you suggest need to take the lead in creating a sort of incubation area, sort of a place to make it something that folks want to come back to and can work with, a sort of transition team being set up to assist nationals who are coming back with that expertise and capital you articulated?
Well, I don't know that it's necessary to put any special institution to deal with nationals coming back home. I think a couple of things. One is, obviously, crime is a major deterrent to anybody who is thinking about returning home and investing in home. That's a major deterrent. But we know the story of that. The government has to treat with it. More importantly, though, I think that, and I could speak from my own experience as a someone of an entrepreneur, that I think that a lot of the incentive programs that we have in place, a lot of the structures policies that we think are working, are in fact not working and not reaching the people they're supposed to reach. And some of these things have to be corrected. I will give you a simple example. There's an incentive for small business, and you have to register to be to be an approved small business to get this 5-year tax holiday. Okay, so I was interested in this thing to get this 5-year tax holiday, and I attempted to register the small business as a small business, to discover that the first criteria that you must meet is that you must employ at least 5 people for a period of at least a year before you can qualify as a registered small business. Now, I understand the intent of that clause, of that condition, because you want to support them, because you want them to generate not only income but employment. But here's what. Businesses grow and they blossom, and in today's environment, you don't necessarily need to have that number of employees. You could grow a $1 million business with 2 people, right?
A server and a couple of computers.
5 years down the road, it could employ about 40 people, but you're denied of access to the funds. And that's just one example of a whole host of what I consider now to be incentives that are not properly targeted because people didn't think about it. They write it there in the book since 1980s. We're in 2016, and they're inappropriate for today's business. The little guy who is working on his computer creating apps, he has one person working with him. Is he a small business? Hell yes. Can he earn a foreign exchange? Of course he can. Does he get benefit from an incentive? No, he doesn't.
We have to rethink the way we approach these things. Something happened.
A whole host package of incentives. They need a thorough and complete review.
Do you think, Gregory, that the
administrative procedures as well create a number of bottlenecks along the way? And I think we need to clear up a lot of these things.
Doctor, you were saying?
Do you think, Gregory, that the Economic Advisory Board that has been studying our economic situation, I don't know if you are part of it, Gregory. So if
Well,
you are part
you
of
know you didn't hear my name called in it, so I'm not part of it.
it. I was just pulling one of you there. But the point is, you made that point, and it's so blindingly important. I mean, it's so clear, so glaring. That we need to revise those old arrangements to, in fact, encourage the kinds of people who you used in your example a while ago. So the question is whether you expect the Economic Advisory Board in their report, because they have been studying our situation, to talk about those kinds of issues. Is that one of them you expect them to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what their agenda is. I know that they have been doing a lot of studies. I know they have identified a number of sectors, including the Carnival thing that we just spoke about.
Okay.
But, two things. One, I don't know where they are with these reports. That's the first thing. And then secondly, in their capacity as advisory body, you don't know what and when they would have told the government what to do. Mm-hmm. My own view is that the Economic Advisory Board needs to be far more public and far more open and share with us their intelligence. I really believe they need to share that with us, so that we all as a nation in the same state.
I can't agree with you more, Gregory.
There can't be a secret between you and the Prime Minister.
Understood. It's 12 o'clock in the city, gentlemen, and I've exhausted the time I have. But before I let you go, and next time, Greg, you must come into studio, and we will just put the 2 hours, put you and Dr. James sit down, and I'll just sit down and just watch you guys. But seriously, we must arrange that. But something happened here that I want to ask, because it saddles two areas. And I'm going to move away from Donald Trump for a moment and come back to Trinidad and continue in Trinidad and Tobago with a local issue, the PDA, the Petroleum Dealers Association. The decision to discontinue using credit cards and so on raises the question. I'm not even going to go single into the merits or demerits of that decision, but it does raise one area in the question of transaction fees with the banks. At some point, when you look at the enormous profits that's declared by banks, even in so-called hard times, it's all out of service fees. And the processing fees coming out of these banks is something that I find disturbing. Do you find so at all, Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, I think the bank fees are high. I would like the central bank, for example, to let the public know comparatively to elsewhere, where we stand. Obviously, in places like North America and bigger economies, where you have a greater number of banks, there's competition among the banks, and fees matter, and therefore that places a restraint, of course, on the capacity to increase fees. What we have here, as you know, is a small number of banks and a few dominant ones, and then they have the Bankers Association. So you find that a lot of what they do is aligned. And in fact, I argue they're operating as a monopoly, because they all align in their policies, and these big firms. And it is a matter that the government, I think, needs to look into, the central bank needs to look into. But also, the decision of the Petroleum Dealers Association is, in fact, what I consider to be a market response to a problem. And sometimes we need to let the market roll, let the market make decisions first. And if the fees are too high and more people decide that they are going to weigh the cost of these fees as opposed to the cost of security, and the cost of the fee and the risk, they consider it to be less risky and cost-effective to pay security, then we will have a situation where less and less people are going to be using the machines. Inconvenience to the customer, but hopefully this will send the right message to the banks.
I hear what you're saying. I'm going to swing this to Dr. James, because I don't know, maybe she has the same fear I have. The fact of the matter is, one, I see a fundamental issue of they saying we're not making as much money because of how much we're buying the gas for on the one hand, and then the processing fees continue to erode what little we are making, so that bank fee become one issue. There is that question of security. If you're telling me not taking credit cards, it means that you're having more cash cash exchange at your station. I am going in there. I am now at further risk. This is not exactly paradise, Dr. James.
Well, it's not only security, while that is important. It is that they feel that they'll be forced to let go of their workers. I thought I heard an impassioned appeal from one of the officers of the PDA saying, look, if we have to pay, given the what we can increase our, well, we can't set the price.
The fixed formula. So
exactly. And they're saying, look, we run the risk of losing our employees because we can't pay them. And of course, the customer will not be affected because the customer will still get his gas. All the customers will just push his card in. So what we are asking ourselves, how does government and how does the PDA, how do those two groups come together to save workers' jobs? Because that's what the PDA is concerned about. If we continue having people buying their gas with their cards, yes, because it's more convenient for them to do that.
Safer.
And of course, you have fees to pay. Well, how do we pay our workers? We have to let them go. But that's unfair. Why would we let our workers down in an economy such as this? So could somebody lend a helping hand? I haven't heard any economist, Gregory, talk about how we can save the jobs of such workers.
Mr. Economist, you step up at this point.
You want this economist to tell us the job. Listen, Winford, my thing is that, yes, the PDA has spoken about they want to save the jobs of workers. But I drive around and I wonder how many workers we're really talking about here.
I don't know. The PDA can tell us. A lot of these gas
stations, certainly the newer ones, they really ain't have much people there. But I think it's all part, they've placed that in the argument for an increased margin.
Yes, that's what they're saying.
It's all part of the argument. Yes. And workers are, because of the emotional attachment to the thing about people losing their jobs, that's always something that helps.
Government must take less and give the PDA more.
Government take less, give the PDA more.
That's what the PDA is saying.
Would the PDA guarantee the jobs of these workers that they're talking about?
Well, I think that's an important question. I think that they should be required to.
I've got to get both of you all back in studio. I've got 10 minutes after. Mr. McGuire, you were let off the hook today because we know you had other things to do. But the next time, if Dr. James takes the time to come down, and you know he's busy too, he takes the time to come down, I hope that you will be able to join us the next time, okay?
Just put it on a day when I don't have other activities, sir.
I will check your people and find out. I want to thank the two eminent guests you've been listening to for the past hour. Is Economist Dr. Mr. Gregory McGuire. Thank you so much for being with us. I also want to thank Dr. James. That's Winford James, who is a political analyst at large and former lecturer at the University of the West Indies. I thank you so much both for taking the time to be here. I also want to thank Michael Seals from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Welfare Association, and also Joseph Rennie from the Communication Workers Union. He is, as you know, the head of the Federation of Independent Trade Unions. My name is Rennie Bishop. You're invited to join me tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock is the new time for the morning show. That's Michelle Burrell, and yours truly will be here from 5 o'clock. When you move is when we move. And come back next week, Sunday, at 10 o'clock for another edition of Brunch. Thank you all so much. You have yourself a very wonderful day.